detainers being held in extreme conditions of confinement.
Shattered by tragedy, children rise for justice, their grief turning into unstoppable fury. In a courtroom charged with raw emotion, they confront their parents' killer in a fiery clash of pain and vengeance. How far will they go? A gripping tale of loss, rage, and the unbreakable power of family.
Deshaun Brown sits in jail, awaiting trial for the murder of a mother and her young son.
DC and Brown. On July 11th, 2023, a courtroom in Cincinnati, Ohio, became the scene of an emotional outburst that underscored the depths of a father's grief. The man at the center of the trial was DC and Brown, accused of a crime so heinous it shook the entire community. Brown had been charged with the aggravated murder of 3-year-old Nilo Lattimore and his mother, Nitisha Lattimore, as well as tampering with evidence and gross abuse of a corpse. Investigators revealed that Brown had meticulously planned the murder. In December 2020, believing that Nitisha had intentionally miscarried their child, Brown sought revenge. He brutally stabbed her multiple times inside her apartment, then kept her body for days before discarding it near the Ohio River. But the horror did not end there. Nilo, the innocent child, was thrown into the freezing waters alive. His small body was never recovered, but his stroller was found nearby, serving as a haunting reminder of his tragic fate. When Brown was finally arrested, the community demanded justice. Prosecutors sought the death penalty, while the defense argued that Brown's bipolar disorder impaired his ability to make rational decisions. However, the judge ruled that while Brown suffered from mental illness, it did not absolve him of responsibility. He was fully aware of his actions and their consequences. During a pre-trial hearing, emotions in the courtroom ran high. Antonio Hughes, the father of little Nilo, sat in silence as he listened to the details of his son's final moments. The weight of grief and anger became unbearable. Without warning, he lunged at Brown, fists flying, desperate to inflict even a fraction of the pain he had endured. Court officers tackled Hughes to the ground, struggling to contain his anguish as the room erupted in shock. The judge, though sympathetic, had no choice but to hold Hughes accountable. He was sentenced to 7 days in jail for contempt of court. Meanwhile, Brown's trial continued, with the weight of his crimes bearing down on him. Despite the devastation, Nilo's family remained strong. Their pain could never be erased, but their love for him endured. They became advocates for justice, ensuring that their tragedy would not be forgotten. In their darkest hour, they showed the world that even through immeasurable loss, resilience and love would always prevail. Dale Williams. On a quiet June morning in 2017, the streets of Youngstown, Ohio, bore witness to a tragic act of violence that would leave a family shattered and a courtroom in chaos. It was on this day that 62-year-old Dale Williams, consumed by rage and bitterness, executed a calculated attack on his ex-girlfriend, Elizabeth Pledger Stewart. Elizabeth, a 46-year-old mother of 2, had once shared a relationship with Williams, but their bond had soured over time. Unable to accept their separation, Williams devised a sinister plan. As Elizabeth drove through the city, he pursued her, his vehicle looming menacingly behind hers. Then, in a sudden and deliberate maneuver, he rammed her car off the road, sending it crashing. With cold intent, he approached the wreckage, gun in hand, and ended her life in a hail of bullets. Williams was swiftly arrested, and the weight of his crime was undeniable. Facing the Ohio judicial system, he pleaded guilty to aggravated murder and weapons charges. The courtroom became the setting for what many hoped would be justice for Elizabeth and solace for her grieving family. However, justice took an unexpected turn on the day of his sentencing. As Williams sat before the judge, awaiting his fate, Elizabeth's 2 sons, Anthony and Jerome Stewart, found themselves overwhelmed by grief and fury. The pain of losing their mother, the frustration of witnessing her killer in shackles yet still breathing, became too much to bear. Without warning, 30-year-old Anthony lunged across the table, evading the officers stationed nearby. He grabbed Williams by the feet, yanking him to the ground. In an instant, his younger brother, 23-year-old Jerome, joined in. The two unleashed a torrent of blows upon their mother's murderer, a raw and visceral display of their anguish. Deputies scrambled to intervene, struggling to pull the brothers away. The chaos escalated until one officer resorted to using a taser. The electric charge sent a jolt through Anthony, bringing the violent outburst to an abrupt halt. Williams, bloodied and disoriented, was escorted from the courtroom, his face streaked with crimson reminders of the son's grief-stricken retaliation. The aftermath was twofold. Williams, the man who had mercilessly ended Elizabeth's life, was sentenced to 23 years to life in prison. Meanwhile, Anthony and Jerome faced their own legal consequences. They were taken into custody and later charged with assault, contempt of court, and obstruction of justice. Their actions, though unlawful, resonated with many who understood their pain. The pain of children robbed of their mother, of justice that sometimes felt too measured for the enormity of their loss. Despite the violent turn of events, the Stewart family story is one of resilience. Elizabeth's sons, though burdened with grief and legal repercussions, carried forward the memory of their mother. Their pain was raw, their actions fueled by sorrow, but their love for Elizabeth remained steadfast. Justice, though imperfect, had been served in the courtroom that day, and through it all, the enduring strength of a family bound by loss and love shone through, a testament to the depth of human emotion and the unwavering bond between a mother and her children. Ryan Burge. On February 10, 2023, a tragic courtroom scene unfolded in Vancouver, Washington, as grief and anger boiled over during the trial of 37-year-old Ryan Burge. Burge stood accused of the brutal murder of 5-year-old Harley Anderson, a crime that had shaken the community to its core. The horrifying incident occurred months earlier, when Burge, a convicted felon, was entrusted with babysitting Harley, while her mother, Natasha Anderson, was at work. Just hours later, Natasha returned home to a devastating sight. Her daughter was unconscious, her small body battered. Rushing her to the hospital, Natasha clung to hope, but it was too late. Harley succumbed to brain swelling and a stroke, injuries consistent with severe abuse. Investigators later confirmed that Burge had beaten the child repeatedly and thrown her against a wall in an act of sheer brutality. Burge's criminal history cast a long shadow over the case. He had previously served 6 years in prison for arson, setting his home on fire in an attempt to collect insurance money. His past, coupled with the overwhelming forensic evidence, left no doubt about his guilt. The charges against him included first-degree murder and first-degree manslaughter. The courtroom was filled with mourners wearing "Justice for Harley" t-shirts, their faces etched with sorrow and fury. As Burge was led in, the tension in the air was palpable. Natasha sobbed uncontrollably, and the victim's family members trembled with restrained rage. It was a moment of unbearable pain for those who had lost so much. As the proceedings began, Harley's father, Peter Anderson, could no longer contain his grief. Overcome with anguish, he lunged at Burge, fury igniting in his eyes. Within seconds, deputies restrained him, dragging him from the courtroom in handcuffs. The chaos was overwhelming. Natasha, unable to bear the emotional weight, collapsed and had to be carried away. The scene left the courtroom in stunned silence, a painful reminder of the depth of their loss. Despite the turmoil, justice prevailed. Burge was convicted of first-degree manslaughter and second-degree murder, receiving a 40-year sentence. While no punishment could bring back Harley, the verdict offered a semblance of justice to a grieving family. Though shattered by loss, Natasha and Peter found strength in their daughter's memory. Their resilience became a testament to the enduring love of a parent. A love that even tragedy could not erase. Michael Madison. On July 19, 2013, the quiet streets of East Cleveland, Ohio, were shattered by a chilling discovery. A foul odor led law enforcement officers to a garage leased by a man named Michael Madison. Inside, they found a decomposing body, wrapped in plastic, a horrifying prelude to what was yet to come. As authorities intensified their search, 2 more bodies surfaced within a 200-yard radius. One hidden in a backyard, the other concealed in the basement of an abandoned house. The gruesome proximity of the victims left no doubt about the calculated nature of the crimes. Each of the victims, Shatisha Shee, 28, Angela Deskims, 38, and Sheila Helen Terry, just 18, had vanished months before, their disappearances leaving a void in the lives of their loved ones. Michael Madison, a man with a long history of criminal offenses, was no stranger to law enforcement. His troubled childhood had led him down a path of crime, beginning with drug convictions in the early 2000s.